I mean, if I told you what you wanted to hear, I mean, about the subject that you're interested in, I mean, ultimately the subjects grow so big that you'll get confused. So I like to give you the information in smaller chunks. Like when in my training program, when I do the Real Roadmap training program, you basically get a chunk of information that you can disseminate and make sense of, then to be able to move on to the next level. I mean, because if I gave you just random conversation about all of the stuff we're talking about, you won't be able to retain it and make sense of it. I mean, that's been my experience with when I try to cover a lot of this stuff with people, because there's so much. So what I suggest with people is, if you're going to look at wanting to do a pay-per-click campaign, well, then you're also going to need a good branded website. Why you need a good branded website is because a good branded website is going to be where you're driving all your traffic, even if you have a pay-per-click campaign. If you're using a low branded campaign and you have leads, you're ultimately going to be pushing them to your branded website. I mean, as you develop a relationship with them, they're going to see you, hear you, talk to you. There's where you're becoming, like in a step-by-step way, you're developing a relationship with people. So you're sending them items of value. With the Gold Rush leads and the performance web page, we send items of value, moving day tips, mortgage calculators, and we give a listing search matching the area that they're looking for, so that when you follow up, you have a good reason to follow up. I mean, follow up and following up and prospecting is quite easy if you do it with leverage. And what I mean by leverage, every time I call a person, I want to be able to have a conversation with them. I just don't want to call up and go, hey, are you still looking? I want to be able to follow up and say, look, I sent you some emails the other day over the last few days, one to a mortgage calculator, another one to moving day tips. I just wanted to follow up, see if that information was of any use to you, or maybe there's other information you might like to be able to I can get my hands on and email off to you. It's just something to start a conversation with. If you follow up on a person who signs up with you, you have 3 steps when you're working with a person in the selling process. And I really don't care what it is on this planet. If you're selling it to somebody, you have 3 stages of selling, and one is the bond, the other is to present a problem, and the third step is to offer a solution. So all of these systems are about that, bringing in leads, enabling you to try to get to the bonding stage, present a small problem, and in our case, this is easy. We point out that the Realtor.ca systems and the public access sites, well, I mean, they're okay, but most of that information gets put up a week late and gets taken down a month or so after it's sold. Now you offer the solution, and the solution is you. The solution is going to be that you have this wonderful system in your office where you'll be able to set them up on where they're going to get listings that are going to be mailed in real time. As a matter of fact, you'll get them at the same time the rest of the real estate industry gets them. They'll match your price, your area, and your style. And does this sound like a good idea if you were looking? And I mean, that's the simple process. But the technical background process is that you are going to have lead systems. You have to have systems. The person with the most systems sells the most properties because they get the most leads and they have the most security. So if you have several systems, and I use the metaphor of the plate spinner in the circus. Back in the old days when they used to have plate spinners, and you go to the circus and you'd see a guy spinning 40 or 50 plates in a circle. Each one of those plates that is spinning represents a system. And so if one falls to the floor and breaks, he's still got 39 left. Well, that's like when they took away expired listings. There was one system gone. And in my case, that was about 20% of my business at one time. But I still had several other systems that were bringing me in business so I could have time to fill that hole and create more business. And that's what you're doing here. When you say that you're short on business, well, it's a matter of building systems. So we start building you a system that is going to work for you, whether it be an inexpensive system or an more expensive system. For example, running ads in your newspaper. There's nothing wrong with doing newspaper advertising, but you better capitalize on every lead like a pit bull would capitalize on a steak. And I mean, because it's very costly. So we have less expensive systems. For example, Kijiji and Craigslist. If you know how to write the proper ads, or teach somebody to write them for you. I teach people on how to get ads written for them for $1.50 a day, and the person will write 2 or 3 ads for them. But that's part of my training program. So you have to determine whether you want to go inexpensive or expensive. I have several others when I use my Gold Rush Leads page and we go after low branded leads. What we end up doing with the low branded style of marketing is setting you up on a Google pay-per-click campaign where you're going to have a budget of usually about $10 a day. And then if you want me to market for you, you're going to have to pay me, which I'm going to charge you $200 a month, which again, on a daily basis isn't that much, but I mean, it can add up. It's still a lot cheaper than newspaper advertising because at the end of the month, if you spend $500, I mean, $500 is really not that much, really, when you take a look at what it costs to run ads in newspapers. But if you spend $500 a month, you're going to get yourself, on average, 2 to 4 leads every day in, day out. And now you have to scrape away the chaff. You're going to get the Santa Clauses and the screw yous. I prefer, when a lead's a bad lead, I want them to flag me by putting up Santa Claus. Or a 555555 phone number, because I can get rid of it right away. I didn't have to waste any time. The Mike Smiths of the world, they kind of trouble me because I know a Mike Smith and he owns 7 bars. However, Mike Smith seems to be pretty popular out there sometimes. And they're not all real. So that's the... Yeah, you can take a low branded lead campaign and break it right down to the postal code if you want to get that narrow. I mean, I don't recommend it, but I don't recommend it getting too large either. If you're going to set up a campaign, and I know you're calling from the Milton area, well then stick with Milton. I mean, if you're going to set up and you want to go after, you know, Brampton and Mississauga and Milton and all these areas, I find that the campaigns water down a little bit, and you do better by sticking with one area because you can make your site keyword relevant. And Google, even though it's pay-per-click, will take a look at your keyword relevance. And if it's not, you'll pay more and you'll show up less. So what I do is when I go in and I build your campaign, I know how to make your site and build it in a way that you will pay less for your clicks, and we will not waste clicks by having unwanted leads. They're called negative keywords. So when I go through this process, that's some of the stuff that I do for people that they cannot do on their own when they're running their own campaigns. So am I worth a couple $100 a month? Probably, because I also give you a pretty thorough education on how to follow up on a lead. I mean, little things, just like the timing of a lead. There was a study done by MIT, which is the Institute of Technology, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, did a study of 100,000 cold calls. They did this over 3 years, studying 6 companies, and they found out invariably if you followed up in 5 minutes, you had a 21 times greater opportunity of converting the lead. That's fascinating to me. If I can find out I can be 21 times a better salesman because I phoned up 5 minutes early as opposed to a half hour, and it's 2,000 times less likely that you'll convert the lead if you wait a day. So little things like that. Then I teach you how to have confidence with your lead, how to enter the call. And I've had a guy that I was just speaking with today, and he was telling me, I taught him one little trick. Look outside. When you have a new lead, just look at the sky and ask the person what got them looking for real estate on a nice sunny day like today. And it's just a conversation opener that gets them off of real estate without the sales pitch happening. And the person then's more really in a position more relative to what you're trying to do, which is to bond with them. Because you can't sell to them until you bond. Because they're not going to want to listen. I don't care if you're selling a refrigerator to an Eskimo. You better bond with them and show them a problem. And the problem in the case of an Eskimo is going to be, well, if you leave that meat outside your igloo, I mean, the polar bear is going to get it. You put it in a fridge, it's nice and safe indoors inside your igloo, and you're all walled in, chances are the polar bear is not going to eat your meat. So, I mean, we have this wonderful fridge here, and you're going to be able to put it in there. You're going to be able to keep your meat at the right temperature and not have it frozen so solid that it won't be able to eat edible. And that would be me selling a refrigerator to an Eskimo. But I wouldn't start selling until I bonded with them first. So that's sort of the Coles notes of this system. And why I didn't dwell on the technical side of this is because it would blur over for you. The concept's more, I mean, I read a good thing the other day, or I heard it, I can't remember. I don't know where it was now, but they said, sell the big picture first. I mean, and then fill in the details. So for me to show you the big picture will give you a better understanding. Don't worry about the details, I will fill those in. Because if I told you about all the details of all of this stuff, it would cloud you over and confuse you. It really would. I mean, It's just easier to understand that you have streams of income. Where are your streams coming from? Can you budget out for a Google? Yes. Well, then I'll build a campaign. You want to see some examples? I will point you to examples. You need a branded website. We build, I think, the best branded website in the market right now. It has full mobile version. You can go to jamesosmar.com. My last name is spelled O-S-M-A-R. And take a look at all the funky stuff we built into that site. You have 3 or 4 different main button designs that you can choose from. You have scrolling headers, scrolling photos. We can link you up to your IDX, Toronto, Treb, anything. What else? You can add video to it, and I think everybody should be using video. And I teach a program on video that for marketing purposes that will rock your world on getting your clients to market you to their list. Get a load of these numbers. Average person, according to Facebook, knows 100 people. That's the mean average. The average is about 186, but the mean is 100 people. So if you took the average couple, let's just say couple knows 100 people. NAR, according to NAR, the average person moves every 7 years. Well, divide 7 into 100. Average person you know knows 14 people moving this year. Average couple knows 28, technically speaking. But the average person then, they'll know 14 people. That is huge. I will show you viral marketing strategies where you can get your seller to market their email list, and their friends will market for them because they are friends. 100 times 100 is 10,000 people. That means that you have 1,428 leads at your fingertips every time you list a house. This is big stuff. When the big picture is grasped by people that I'm working with, it's rocking their world because they have so many leads coming to them, they never have to worry anymore. And that's where you want to be. Because the person with the most leads sells the most houses, and more importantly, they have the most security. But I would suggest that you go to SellingToolz.com, and SellingToolz ends with a Z, not an S. Go take a look at some of the videos. All right. And thank Joe for me for recommending that you... Yes, I'm out of London, Ontario. I am true blue Canadian blood. I think I even got a little native blood if you go back far enough, so... Well, yes. I appreciate that, and I do. You asked Joe. I work darn hard for everybody that I'm helping because I get a lot of satisfaction out of trying my hardest to relate to the people that I'm working with so that they get it and life becomes easier. Because real estate's a tough business. It's a tough freaking business. I mean, when you got to get up every day and hit the phones, and you have to get up and hit the phones. If you want to do 200 deals a year. Well, put it this way. If you're not on the phone for 50 deals a year, at least an hour a day, you're not going to hit 50. You want to do 50 deals a year, you're going to have to get on the phone probably 2 hours a day. And that's talking to new people, filling the funnel. I'm not talking about the other hour a day that you should be talking to your old list and developing and keeping that relationship going. So what I've done is I've built systems on how to touch with your old list and get them working for you. Because really, there's a lot of money out there. Remember, if the average person moves every 7 years, that means everybody you sell a house to today is going to move again in 7 years, on average. So if you get 50 sales completed this year, in 7 years, 25 of them will be moving again. And out of that 25, many will be selling and buying. So there's a potential 30, 35 deals out of every 50 you do in 7 years. So to keep that list warm, there's ways of doing it without irritating them and having them move on.